Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Money Mindset Hub podcast. So I'm your host, Carla Townsend, a money mindset and success coach for female entrepreneurs who are ready to eliminate their money blocks and monetize their genius. Now, today I have a very special guest on for you that I actually had the privilege of being on her podcast last week. So Mel Robbins. Let me tell you a little bit about Mel. So Mel is a product-based business coach. She's a speaker, a podcaster, and an overall hype woman with a completely no bullshit approach. She's also a former lecturer of a fashion business with 25 years experience in retail and wholesale. She's literally done it all. She's built over multi-million, repeat that. She's built two multi-million-dollar product-based businesses that she's since sold. She's owned retail stores. She's been a buyer for big brands, a seller, been exhibited at over 50 trade shows, worked with hundreds of brands to help them grow over $1 million in sales. And now she's taken all her knowledge and her wisdom and her unique approach into super easy, simple to follow strategies to help you confidently build your product-based business. Wow. Wow.
That's a lot. Thanks for having me, Carla.
When you hear that back, are you just like, who is this chick?
Yeah, it is a lot. And it is, I think the whole thing of those different elements of, I haven't just done one thing. And I guess that's where I talk to my kids about, or talk to people about, like, everything you do leads to something else. And so everything has been a step, and, all your whole journey has led you to this place almost. So yeah, it is amazing. I love hearing that back. It's like, yes, every element has been important along the journey, but yeah, it's amazing. I love working with product-based businesses.
You know what? I find it so intriguing too, because I have specifically only worked with service-based businesses, and that's all I've ever done. But I've always been intrigued by product-based businesses. And it's the first off things that come to mind is like, well, where do you even start? Suppliers, all the rest. Now I have a bit of knowledge because I've done a bit of research into it, because I think I would like to branch out into products for the brand, for the Money Mindset Hub brand, which just makes sense. It'd be exciting, a new learning curve. But literally, if you have anyone listening right now, which I know there's going to be many that are going to say, well, I wouldn't even know where to start. What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, I'd start with, what problem are you solving? So why are you bringing something to market in the first place? So what is the problem you're solving? Why do you want to bring it to market? And really knowing that is really important. And then from there, it's like, well, let's say that you want to create something, a book or whatever it might be. How is it different to what else is on the market? So it doesn't have to solve a completely unique problem. Like, obviously, not many people are reinventing not many people are coming up with a brand new product. Most people are reinventing something that's already in existence. And then, so how is it unique or different to what else is out there? So that would be the second step. And then once you've sort of got, okay, well, I want to bring this and I want to create this product, and this is what's different about it. I know that I'm going to have people respond to it because it's got these differences. Yeah. Then you've got to start that supply chain journey. And really, and I saw a reel on this the other day, someone else shared, that is part of being a product-based business, trying to find a supplier that you resonate with, has good values, has a great product that they're actually going to create for you, has the right price point. Like, that can take people anywhere from 1 month to 2 years to really get right. And so I wouldn't shortcut that, in terms of, you've got to go through that process to find someone to work with and to create the product that you actually want. Because it takes time to sample it and get, things right, because hardly anyone who's created a product, the first time you might get something back from a factory or you make yourself, it's not going to be the perfect specimen, right? Like, you've got to work through it. So it does take time to get right, but that is really important, to make sure what you're doing is different, or it's unique. There is something unique about it. And then, working through getting the different suppliers. You might start with 1 or 2 to get a product that you come back with. And I wouldn't be afraid to go in with, like, a client the other day I had on my podcast, actually. She was talking about, she just does hand sketches for her factories. You don't have to have fancy CAD drawings or fancy, imagery. It can really start really raw, in terms of, this is a hand-drawn product that I want to create. Can you help me create it?
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, that's cool. I think It's easy to overcomplicate the whole thing, but at the end of the day, you just kind of got to start, right?
You
You
just got
kind
to
of got to just
start.
figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. And know that it will get better. Like, you might start with packaging that's just average. It's okay. As you develop, it's going to get better. As you start to know who your customer is, that might get better. Don't be worried about that it has to be perfect when you launch to market, because again, you're probably going to launch to a small audience. So it can get better and better as you grow as well.
Yeah. And you know what? When you look back sometimes, I know I definitely did. I looked back at some of my first ever launches and branding, and it's so
Mhm.
cringeworthy.
It is. I have kept like old catalogs that we started with, the photo shoots you do. Like, yeah, it's messy, it's messy, but that's okay. You got to start somewhere.
So take us back on the journey, because 25 years is a hell of a long time. And
It's a long time.
where did you start? Actually, no, I have one specific question for you.
Mhm.
So you used to be a maths and science teacher. So let's just start there. You used to be a maths and science teacher. So who
Yeah.
was it, or what was it that showed you that there was another way?
Well, probably I did that out of school. I did a science degree in human movement, which is human biology, human exercise science and stuff like that. And then I did teaching after that, because it's like, well, what else do you do after that? So I did a teaching degree. So I actually didn't even train to be a maths teacher, but it just what happens when you get into a school, they just go, oh, you can teach maths as well because you're a science head. Anyway, I just didn't, I was not passionate about it. I didn't love it. Like, it was okay. I didn't mind it for 4 or 5 years. I think I did it for maybe 6 actually. But my sister was looking at starting a brand. And so she was sort of the starting point. And so I found a piece of paper yesterday actually, and it was 2001. What my ideas were to start this brand. It was crazy. So anyway, but before that, I worked in retail, so that's where the 25 years comes from, even though that was 24 years ago. All
Mm.
right, so going back there, she'd started the brand. I'd always been passionate about fashion. I'd always loved design. I'd been surrounded my whole life with entrepreneurship in terms of my dad and parents had always had their own businesses. So I'd worked in their stores, I'd worked in retail. I'd, seen their progression of different businesses as it unfolded, good and bad, lots of lessons learnt there. And yeah, I just wanted to do something for myself, I think. So, and since then, I had the job teaching, and then I worked corporate for 3 or 4 years. But other than that, I've always worked for myself. So pretty much 20 years of, working for myself in different iterations.
Yeah, that's
Mm,
cool. And
mm.
what was it? What were some of those lessons that you learned? You sort of just touched on it there, but what were some of the lessons that you learned, I suppose, working for other people? Were there things that you were like, oh, that's what I'd do different? Or yeah, what kind of
Well,
when did you
probably working for myself, the things that were learned were all the things that I try and teach today. So really understanding your money, hence, we're talking today as well, but knowing your numbers, knowing your profit and loss statement, not being afraid to do that. Like, I think as when you say you're starting a product business, you're like, okay, I need to get sales, and you might price for affordability. That's one of the things that I always talk about people do. I just want to bring this to market so that, they think of their own values and what they can afford. And I want to bring this to market because I think that, let's say, $20 is a good price for this product. Yet they haven't really thought about, and probably myself, you didn't think about what the actual cost of the goods were, or how much it would cost to bring it to yourself, to get it out to stores and stuff like that. So really making sure that you've priced your product properly is one of the big lessons early that I learned and we figured out. And that for us, what that looked like, and I say us because it's my sister and I at the time, that looked like really, editing and manufacturing, or looking at different numbers so we could buy a bigger volume so that we could get a better price, so that we could get more margin in our range. Really working with we did wholesale, which meant that we could get orders on our samples before we actually brought it to market. So then we had some sort of security of what people were going to like and what they were going to respond to. So learning all those things, that might have been a good idea to start with a fashion brand, because you're not taking all the risk and sort of going, here it is, and here's 1,000 units, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? You just don't know. So that was really helpful, doing those sort of things. Spending time on sales. everyone, like, it's one of those things that you think, oh, I can do it, or I'll get to that and I'll do that. And if it's something you're not comfortable with or you're slightly scared about doing, putting yourself out there, it always becomes the last thing. And so if you don't prioritize the sales, you're not gonna. And this came to that I was a national sales manager. That was my corporate role too. And so because I was that specific role, that's all I did. And so that was a priority in that business. Whereas when you're doing it for yourself, sometimes it can get left to the last minute because you're just like, a bit almost apprehensive to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I think we can definitely both vouch that selling is one of the biggest blocks that women have in business, because I know
Yes.
you also work with women. So what would you say to people to sort of overcome that then, especially in the product-based business? Because you touched on a few things there. You touched on a few things there around, first off, affordability, but
Mm-hmm.
you've really got to start with from the start. Well, what does your product actually take to
Yeah.
bring to market? What's it going to cost to bring to market? Then what's it going to take to, ship it around? What's all of those? There's so
Yeah.
many costs that actually come into pricing
Mm.
before you actually make that price. And I think often people do make themselves affordable, but they're only really scratching by, and especially for, say, brick and mortar businesses that begin, it's at least 2 years before most turn a profit.
Mm.
Now, I think that could be reduced dramatically. I think those stats could be reduced if people just started with this.
Yeah.
And so I know that you had mentioned as well, I read it on your website, that you'd focused, you wish you had focused more on the profit, the planning, and the strategy and how to build actual long-term sustainable business first. And I
Yes.
think that's, like, by what you're saying, I think that's a big lesson for most people. And I don't think it really matters whether you're in product or service. I think you need to remember that it's still, whether it's your time that you're trading or whatever it might be, you still need to come back to it. Actually has to be profitable from the beginning, because then that's how you create more profit to be able to invest back in your business. And I remember my grandpa actually saying to me, because he was an entrepreneur as well. I remember him saying to me when he began, one of the best lessons that he was ever taught from his dad, he said, in the beginning, the profit is your prisoner. Like,
Mm.
meaning you must put that back into the business to get it to grow. Your profit
Mm.
is your prisoner. And he said that to me.
Mm.
And I think I could be, I would say 90%, I could say in the beginning, the profit is like, oh my God, it's profit. What do we do
Yeah.
with this? And most gets spent, right? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
not really strategic. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about that and I suppose your strategies to be able to build that long-term sustainable growth
Yeah.
from more of the beginning rather than having to learn those hard lessons?
Yeah, so on that, one thing I'll just add into that is the affordability factor is like the saying of stay out of your customers' wallets. Like, you cannot you don't know what they value as affordable slash expensive. Having that mindset of like, well, this is I walked into a crystal shop a month ago or something, and was like, the lady said, oh, there's some over here, these ones are more expensive. And I was like, what? Like, why would you say that in a retail shop? Like, how does she know what I think is expensive or not, or anything else? It was just I was just like blown away. I didn't say anything to her that, don't say that. But anyway,
Well, you don't know, do you?
assume what people will spend just because you have that value. Don't make that assumption for someone else. And then on that profitability side, like, you are better off not selling as much um, than selling more and making no profit on it. Like, you're better off selling less items and making a profit on every item you sell, because you also feel good about every time you sell a product. You won't think, oh, but I haven't got much margin on that and I won't actually make any money on it. Like, you're going to feel good with everything that you sell. So you're better off selling less and getting a better margin than selling more and making no money in it anyway. So it's not all about that top line sales of you need these units sold or this sold. Like, you're better off selling more. And this is not like that it should be a huge margin or huge profit margin, but you've just got to have enough. And I guess that's where some people are just err on the side of less before they, even get a chance to get going. And as you
Yeah.
say, there's no money then to spend on other things, because you do have to spend money to get a customer. So just because I saw something the other day, which was someone talked about Lululemon leggings are $100 or something, and they cost $30 to make. And I was like, well, that's actually not much at all for them to make profit. Like, that's not actually much for them to actually get that product to market, have all the costs that they have involved. Like, that's not much margin at all. He was talking about it like, oh, they're ripping people off. And it's like, the people aren't just charging double the amount of what it costs them so they can, like, there's a lot of money to get something to market as a product, to get it out the sales channels you need to sell it at. So it's not, you need to make at least, I always call it an 80% margin if you're selling retail. So if it costs $100 at retail, ideally it wouldn't cost you much more than 20 to get it to you. So then you can wholesale it as well, because you might only sell that wholesale for $50. So
Right.
that's
That's
a
going to be my next
number.
question.
Yeah, a number is a generalization, and that's not, you might start off less than that because you make a really small quantity. You might make 100, so it might cost you $30 when you first start out. But then hopefully as you scale bigger, you can get that cost price down a little bit to be $20, for example. And then you want to have a balance of sales from not just direct to consumer, but also wholesale or other channels. Like, you should always, as a product business, I think, have lots of different channels that you're selling on, because then you've got more opportunity to get in front of more people.
Yeah. And that's different revenue streams, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the average multimillionaire has about 7 to 9 streams of income. So let's just put that out there.
Yeah, exactly. So you cannot, and a lot of people start out with their own website, which is great because it's a really easy way to get going, but it's really expensive to get customers to that website. So it should not be the only thing that you do, and should not be the only way that you sell. It should just be one, as you said, revenue stream.
Yeah, that's only one revenue stream. And then when we're talking about too, having that idea of selling less but for more profitability, because at the end of the day, if like you said, if you could sell a lot but you're making barely anything on top of that, one, you're not going to want to sell it because it's not exciting to sell it, because you're not really making anything of it. And then how long is it sustainable? How long is it going to last? And I think for majority of people listening to this, they want freedom. They're after freedom.
Yeah.
And so is that tiny percent of profit actually going towards your freedom? Like, is it actually helping you to create the values that you want in life? The time, is it going to your family? Because I think at the end of the day, that's what you need to remember. Like, that is your why. And that's why you're starting this, whether it is whatever kind of business is, whether it is product, whether it is service, but you need to have that profitability. Otherwise, it's not long-term. It's not sustainable. You're going to get burnt out. You're not going to want to sell. Your energy will get depleted, and you'll just feel like, why did I even bother? Because you're not actually seeing things moving, or you have no profit to be able to grow the business, to get the support. Yeah. There's so much in it. And I think it's really interesting too, that you touched on the Lululemon. Yes, it may cost them $30, but I'm sure it costs quite a lot for them to employ all the people that they employ, to transport all their products, to have their retail stores, to even have their online stores. Like, if we think about businesses from just this point of view, those products, like, and what you're purchasing, they are also giving back to the people who work for the company. It's not just, I think sometimes there can be this bit of a stigma towards really big brands. And I know you've had experience working with big brands too. Sometimes there's this stigma that, well, they've got so much of the market. They price so much, they price people out. And so they think that these big businesses are just sort of ripping people off. Like you said, like they're ripping people off because they're charging so much. But at the end of the day, when I see a big business, I always think, imagine how many people are reliant on that business succeeding. Imagine how many people are reliant on them to pay them to be able to put food on the table for their families at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot more involved in it. Yeah, as you say, it's not just going in the pocket of the owner, every single dollar. Like, that's just not how it works. So looking at the impact that it can have is big there as well.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting.
And just on I'm just going to touch on this because we talked about the profit. When people sell wholesale, it's really important to look at it long term as well. And because when you're with a wholesale customer, the lifetime value of that customer is much, much higher than a retail customer, and you don't have to work as hard to keep them for long term. So that's just something to keep in mind, because I know a lot of people get stuck on, you've talked about profit margin and you want to make enough profit margin. Well, why would I sell wholesale when I make half the price? And it's like, because they're buying volume and they're buying long term. So you're not viewing it as that one purchase for the unit that you're selling. It's long term value, how many people they can get in front of, and how many times they can buy from you. It's that long-term value. So I just want to touch on that, because I know that comes up for people, but that's the lowest profit margin. Why would I sell?
No, I think that's really great that you touched on that, because it's true. And I think, to be honest, I think anyone starting a business that wants to see it succeed long term, you have to think long-term vision, and you have to make decisions from that place of, where do I see my business going? Where do I see this vision, the mission? Where do you see that going and being in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah.
Because they're the decisions that you need to actually think about now. So not making decisions based off where you're at. Again, if you're making a profit now, think about, where do you want to invest those profits? What do you want to do with those profits? Is it going to help you in the next, your 5-year vision, your 10-year vision, whatever it might be? If it's not, think about it. And again, you have to know your numbers to even be able to do that.
Yeah, you do, definitely. And they shouldn't be scary, I think, as well. People just, I guess that's one of the things you work with people on a lot as well, that money mindset, like not being afraid to dive into your numbers and understand where money's coming in. Like we had a discussion before, like, I'm paying extra for my AI, but it's like, but Zoom does it already. So like, where is that money? What money's coming in and out? And just knowing what you're spending money on, and is that money giving you a return on investment, or is it just an extra thing you probably don't really need? Like really knowing what and where money's going.
Yeah. And it's so easy to get carried away too, especially, when you're in the online space. There are so many different programs that you can use, but
gosh,
there's
so
so much different AI now too, that a lot of them have now incorporated. And yeah, I couldn't help it when I saw that. I was like, Mel,
what are you doing?
what are you doing this for?
No, it's true. And you got to keep doing it too. And you've really got to always work in it. And you asked me earlier about one of the, like limiting beliefs or things that have changed over time. Definitely, I think I probably had, I definitely had a scarcity mindset earlier. I didn't even know that that word existed 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, actually. But it definitely something that I didn't know that I had, like, that there's not enough customers for everyone. Like they're totally, like, when I look at brands now, and brands that I work with in retail stores, I say to them, like, I discover, and Australia is, obviously we're based in Australia, it is not that big it's a big country physically, but it's not that big a country in population. But every single day I discover a new brand, a new retail store, a new location I've never heard of. And I've been in this business a long time, and this is what I do, like look at stores and brands and everything. And every day I discover a new store, a new brand. And I think, I didn't know they were out there. Like there's just so many potential customers for people. There's so many different opportunities for people. And yeah, I think that's, having that scarcity mindset has made a big difference to the way I do business and what I work with clients on as well.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, it's that feeling of there's never enough. So when you talk about scarcity and lack, it can come in the terms of clients. It can come in the terms of, I've made this much money in my business, but that's not enough, or I still want more. And is it going to run out? There's so many different facets when it comes to any of those limiting beliefs that we can have and experience. But you're so right. There is always more than enough. And again, you never know what someone can afford. So do not price based on what you think someone can afford. Do not sell based on the fact that you think that there might be not enough. There always is. You have to be able to cultivate an abundant mindset if you want to see long-term success. I truly think so.
Yes.
And I don't think it matters either whether you're starting out or whether you're very seasoned, because some of my clients have been very seasoned, like multi 6 and 7 figures. And I've noticed similar beliefs underlying in women that are just starting out. That's what's really interesting, because they are a little bit sneaky. They do come up, but it's nice to be able to be aware of it and then be able to move through it and just watch everything actually start to fall into place. Like, what have you noticed even since having to work on your money mindset, your scarcity mindset that was coming up as well? What else have you noticed, or what else have you felt like you've overcome on this journey? Like, what would you tell to someone now starting out? Hey, these are some of the things that would pop up for me.
Yeah.
Just FYI, they're really important.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Where do you start?
Yeah, where do I start? I'm not even sure. I would say definitely the way you speak to yourself and the voice inside your own head type of thing. Limiting beliefs that way in terms of, you know, trying to think. Sorry, I'll have to edit this bit out.
Totally fine. I really hit you with that one there. And I was like, did I ask that in a straightforward way? Probably not.
Oh, you did.
All right. So let me
I
ask
wrote
it
some
in a
things
different
down.
way. Okay, go.
Well, definitely like things like, actually, I can't remember what your question is now. What was your question actually?
So what sort of, what did I ask?
What limiting beliefs? I think you asked about what.
Yeah, let me talk about, let's talk about the limiting beliefs, or let's just say, what are some of the limiting beliefs or maybe self-sabotages that you noticed that were really key in your success?
I don't know.
Okay, let me ask another one.
I'm stuck now. I'm just like, it's obviously a limiting belief. I'm just totally stuck now. What am I doing?
No. Okay, so I think the scarcity one was good. We'll talk about that. Okay, next question. Actually, let me just pull one out of my phone because I have some pretty good ones here. All right. Oh, yeah, this one's a good one. I love when my brain just goes and I start typing all these questions and I'm like, hang on, I'll pull from this list. Okay. How have you continued to stay hungry to succeed and keep growing after you've already created so much success for yourself?
Oh, wow. I think that's a good question.
Thank you.
I think that I, as an entrepreneur, I'm always learning, always wanting to know more, always discovering new things. And there's no limit to what you could possibly explore or, learn about yourself or the business in general. I think and I love helping other people explore that too. And I think that's one of the things, like, I sort of look back and go, oh, I wish I knew that. I wish I'd done that. Or if I'd done that, that would have really helped me. So for me now, it's like, how can I help other people, learn the lessons or get through the lessons that I learnt faster and not make maybe the same mistakes or not make them to the same degree. So that, because it's like, oh, you don't have to worry about that, or this is something you should focus on, or this really helped me. So me being able to have impact with other people is so important now. I just love that factor, and helping women. The big thing for my clients as well is confidence. So I love seeing that, grow in confidence and back themselves more. And so for me, that's what I love doing, like really making sure that they have that. So yeah, I think there's always a hunger for learning more and helping more people.
I think there is nothing that comes close to actually being of service to someone else. It's like this, the more that you give to someone else and the more that you see you supporting someone else, you helping them, like you said, they're taking maybe shortcuts and they're not having to learn really hard lessons in the way that you maybe did. I think just seeing someone else be successful and you being a part of their journey is just so rewarding. And the confidence piece too, I think that is one of the main blocks that comes up without a doubt is, I just wish I was more confident. I'm just not confident enough. It always does, but you probably noticed this too, but being able to become confident isn't something that we just decide to be confident. It comes with practice and it comes with being so terrified to do the thing. And then you realize it gets a little bit easier every time.
Yeah. And 100%, I think if you've got to work on it, you've got to work through some things. It's hard to, you can't just sort of forget about or whatever, but it's facing your fears on things as well. But I definitely see that as being able to have that impact makes a big difference. Like I had someone say to me, you know, they went through my course and they're like, imposter syndrome be gone. Like they just sort of felt more confident in what they were putting out there. And that's what I try and do in terms of give people the knowledge of, well, this is how you go about things. This is how, because I have been in it such a long time, you know, this is how you sort of do things in this industry. And so then they're confident in their approach to approach, say, new stores, or confident to put their product out there in a certain way, because they're like, oh yeah, okay, I am doing this in the, you know, way that is expected, or my lack of knowledge isn't a negative thing. It's just a way for me to, you know, move past that and actually do things differently sometimes as well.
Yeah. And you only know what you know.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a really great reminder what you just said then for everyone listening. Like once you know what to do or you get guidance, it's such a key thing to be able to find someone you actually resonate with and learn from them, so that you're learning from someone who's done the thing or has been where you are, because then you're not just waiting for the right time and putting things off because you don't know enough yet. Not knowing enough will continue to remain a problem until you seek the answers.
Yes.
So find someone who you resonate with and find the answers. Maybe it is you start listening to the podcast, like listen to Mel's podcast. If you want to learn about product-based businesses, listen to her podcast.
There's
She'll
a lot
teach
on there.
you. There is a lot.
There is
So
a lot.
start listening there. And
Yeah.
I think just keep following that, the nudges that you get. And you're probably the same. You just get these little nudges like, oh, I'm just going to listen to this podcast. Oh, hang on a sec. Now she's got this program. Like, yeah, I feel called to do that. Okay, I'll just do that. I think no matter what it is that you are learning from or who you're learning from, whether it be a book, a podcast, a coach, a program, whatever it is, if you learn one golden nugget, that was one golden nugget that you wouldn't have known that might be the very thing that makes you skip 5 steps, 10 steps. You know what I mean?
100%. And yeah, how much has it saved you, the energy? What does it cost you not to do it almost? That's sort of something as well that comes up. So, you know, what time are you wasting or by not investing in yourself, and that doesn't mean money, but yeah, as you say, like time and, you know, energy, listening to something or applying something as well.
Yeah, that's just it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I always hear is I just don't want to stay in the same position. I don't
Yes.
want to look back in another year and then realize I've not moved an inch closer to anything that I actually want. I've just stayed where I am.
Safe.
Yeah, you've stayed safe. And I don't think there is anything more, miserable is not the right word, anything more disheartening than when you go, oh my God, here we are again. It's bloody January. And what did I even do last year? I still have the same desires. I still have the same fears. I still have all this stuff to overcome and all this stuff I want to create. Yet here I am again. It's January again. And I still feel stuck. And I still feel like I've wasted time. I think at the end of the day, you don't want to get to the point where you truly are too old. You know, I'm talking like 90s. Let's say we get to our 90s and you go, what could have been? What could have been if I just had a crack? If I had have just reached out to that person, if I had have maybe read that book, if I had have sold that thing, had that conversation, followed those nudges that we all get the nudges, but sometimes they're very scary and there's such a fear, but you have that nudge for a reason. You have that desire for a reason. You've just got to move towards it. So I always go back to The One Thing. Have you ever read the book, The One Thing?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, it's great. It's a black and yellow book. It's literally just called The One Thing.
The One Thing.
So
I love me a book.
It's great. So all you need to do every day is ask yourself, what is one thing that I can do today to get me closer to my goal? Or let's say you are, creating something, you have a dream, a desire, something that's on your vision board. What is one thing that you can do this day, this week, this month, this year, just to get you one step closer towards that? What's one thing? Maybe it's literally just you're going on a trip and you research the place that you're going. So you actually just become informed. It's just about that rather than overcomplicating it. Yes. I know that I could be guilty of this too, is thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to bring to fruition. Oh God, there's probably like 20 things that I need to do. And that can be overwhelming. And so you stop and you go, I don't know how to do all that. I don't know where to go. What I've learned is out of that 20 list, what's the one thing that you need to do first? What's one thing that you can do off that list? Just do that.
Just
And
start.
just start. And it doesn't matter if you don't know. We don't want to map out everything from A to Z. Like I used to be a project manager, and
you would have exactly done
so
exactly that.
It's exactly what I had to do.
Yeah.
And if I stuffed it up, it was going to cost a lot of money to the business.
Yes.
So I had to unlearn that as well. And just, I think in business, when you're starting, at the end of the day, I don't think there's any such thing as failure.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. And there's not, I don't think there is any such thing as failure. It's just like, what have you learned? What would you not do next different? What would you do differently? And as I said at the start, like everything you're doing leads to somewhere else. Like I was teacher, I worked in fashion, then I became a fashion teacher. Like it was just this combination of, what else you're doing and where does it lead you? Even if you say you start your product business, it doesn't work out. What have you learned from it? Or, a few people start and then they're like, oh, I need a different product. That's not the product that I need to be doing. I need to be doing something else, and something else happens. Or they're like, I need a different price point because this one isn't working for me, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And you don't have to try and get it right the first time. I think sometimes people get so caught up on, I've got to launch the right business, the right product, the right service. But at the end of the day, it's just like going into, say, a career. I think majority of us got that old programming of like, go to school, go to uni, get a degree, go get your career. Who stays in their career from the minute they leave uni till the end of their working life?
Very few people now.
Exactly. So look at business like that. You could start a business, have a decent crack at it, and in 5 years go, no, you know what?
It's not, it's not for me anymore. That one,
exactly,
that particular thing. Yeah.
And guess what? You get to choose.
Asking those questions too, like, what is the worst that could happen? Like, what's and asking the two questions essentially, like, what is the worst that could happen? And then playing that out, like really playing that out of, well, this could happen. I could end up like this and end up like this, and this could take place. And if it did, what would you do? And then what's the best that could happen? What could actually happen? What would that look like as well? And really, how would that feel? And going through those things too, but like really diving into the end of either of those things and just sort of seeing what it makes you feel like as well.
Exactly. And I honestly always come back to the worst case scenario of, well, I would never know.
Yeah.
And I would much rather learn a few lessons than never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And die wondering, as you said, like,
exactly.
Get to the end and go, what if I had done that? What if I had launched that? What if I had created that? What if I had put that out there?
And it could have been the best thing you ever did, and you wouldn't know.
Yeah. And I think going back to, what is one of the things you said about limiting beliefs as well, but clients, I see a lot of people that I work with, students I work with, clients that I work with, they're asking permission almost to, like, is it okay if I sell you this? Is it okay if I show you this? Like that limiting belief of they're not good enough is definitely a factor in there as well. So, the way you speak to yourself, I think we talked about too, that the Jay Shetty, I use one of his videos in one of my programs in terms of just the reference of, I think there's one thing where he, makes other people say something to their sister or things that are written down about themselves, he makes them say it to someone else. And most people at that stage are like, I wouldn't speak to, my sister like that. And the whole thing is, well, why would you speak to yourself like that too? So that whole feeling of the negative self-talk and the way you talk to yourself is a big factor, I think I see in a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. And that, never feeling good enough, never feeling like you know enough, never feeling like you're confident enough. To be honest, I think there's two different ways to look at that. So we're all worthy. We're all born worthy of our desires. We all have totally different desires. So why not try, for one? And to be honest, the other side that I look at that as we're not good enough is, at least that makes you still be hungry to continue learning, to continue going, because I haven't met anyone yet that has been like, nah, I've got it all sorted out. I'm good. I'm happy. I've got enough. I've done
There's
enough.
nothing that I need to know.
Do you know what I mean? Like that never enough is however you perceive never enough. And I look at never enough as like, I've still got so much more to do. And will I ever, I feel like I am enough now. It's more so that worthiness piece of like the self-worth. Self-worth, absolutely everyone is already worthy of it. But I think it's best to look at it like that point of never enough can be a good thing. It could be your driving force. It could be your motivator, especially when you tap it into your why. But yeah, that inner self-talk is just, honestly, if you start to observe the thoughts that are in your mind and observe your self-talk, you will realize how negative it is, because that is just the negative loop that is in us, and we all have that.
Yes.
But I think the moment that you actually bring awareness to it is the moment that you can actually start to change that inner self-talk. And then your entire life begins to change, because you start to look at things differently. You start to interrupt and be your own pattern interrupter.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. No. You go. I was going to find you one last question.
No, yeah, go.
All right. Okay, I got 2 questions to finish off.
Okay.
All right. First of all, what is the best piece of advice you've ever heard?
Oh, gosh. That is a tough one.
It doesn't have to be the one, but just one you're like, that was a beauty.
Advice. Okay, I'm just gonna give you I've got all these quotes and stuff up on my wall and in front of me, and there's one that I can see, and I'm like, your future depends on what you do today. Like, like what you do today is, as you said, it can just be one step, one, action towards your goal, but your future depends on what you do today.
I love that. That is there you go. That's that one thing coming back. What's the one thing you can do today? And then there's the second part of that question. What's the worst advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I remember, I don't know if it's advice, but I remember this is almost a money block from childhood, what your parents said. And I remember my dad saying something that just stuck with me for a long time, which was, you don't make money when you're in your business, you make money when you sell it. And it's one of those things that at that stage of probably his business, that might have been the situation or the case. Like, but then I think that's sort of, I held on to that, and that it was okay that was the situation. But in hindsight now, I'm like, that is bullshit. Like, what a stupid thing to say, because of course that's not why you'd want a business. You can make money, you can make a profit while you're in your business. And then, because not everyone wants to sell either. Like, I don't have an end goal of selling my business. That is not in my plan. It's not part of why I would do a business. Whereas obviously some people would create a business to sell. A lot of product businesses would create it to sell. But yeah, so hearing that, I'm like, no, that is not good advice at all.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. Yeah. I definitely agree with you there. But it's funny, the things that we do pick up from when we're so young, and we do hold on to them like they are Bible.
Yes. Yeah. And even the like generational, like obviously, because you've, as you said, I think it was now when we had a chat on my podcast, but you hear things from your parents, but they've learned things from their parents, or like other generational, and so it's not their fault or anyone's fault or anything, but it's just like, what have you held on to? What do you need to move past? And even just trying to figure out what they are, because you might not even realize that they are part of your story.
Yeah, and they can be generational beliefs, generational trauma that continues to be passed down.
Yeah.
And it can be very limiting, but it's very healing when you start to recognize them. But again, you have to recognize that inner self-talk, because at the end of the day, the thoughts that you're thinking and the words that you speak out loud, you're listening. You are listening, and you are believing it to be truth about you. Yes. So it's super interesting.
Yes.
All right. Well,
yeah, we could keep going, but
we could.
I definitely, I think anyone who has a product-based business, they definitely need to work on their money mindset as well. Like that is a big factor, because at first, I think when I'm such a strategy, practical, solution-based, sort of type of person as well. But after working with so many different clients, I can see that the mindset side is a big part of it too. And you can have all the strategy, but if you're still holding yourself back almost with what your actions are and what your self-belief is and stuff, and what your view of money or what's possible is there, then it just does make it a lot harder than if you didn't have that. So
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think it matters what industry or niche you're in. I notice it from, my God, I couldn't even tell you how all of them that I've worked with, many coaches, there is product-based businesses now, attorneys, you name it, some very, very successful women that have been around for a long time, have made a lot of money in their business, some starting out, but it's always something that comes up, and there's so many different layers. I always say, like, blocks are like an onion. There's so many layers to it, and they continue to come up. Doesn't matter how much experience you've got or how much money you're making, but the more you can actually free yourself from the self-belief that you do have and the money blocks that you do have, the easier things start to feel.
yes.
You've just got to
And
be able to master your mind at the end of the
yeah,
day.
and it's always a work in progress. Like, you never finish.
No, no, you never ever are.
No.
Well, honestly, Mel, I've loved this. I love talking to you. It's so easy to talk to you. So tell
Thank you
us,
so much for
where
having
can
me.
we find you?
So all my things are all at the Lot Code, which is my Instagram. So the Lot Code, and I do obviously have a very common. I do have a name of someone else. Mel Robbins is a common name that other people obviously might know. So Melissa Robbins is what I do go by on my websites and stuff. But anyway, I'm such a rambler. Okay, let's cut that.
So Melissa, whatever you want to call her, she's at the Lot Co everywhere, basically,
Everywhere.
podcast and all. So I'll link everything in the show notes
Yes.
so that they can find you and check out your incredible work, especially if they are wanting to create a product-based business. At least they can go to you, who has so much experience and knowledge in so many different areas. You're just incredible. What you've done is just incredible, and you are such a beautiful person and so easy to speak to, which is the best. I think everyone listening can definitely tell they're going to get the no BS approach, but very straight to the point.
Straight to the point. Yeah.
Thank you so much
thank
for
you
coming
so
on.
much. It's been fabulous.
Thank you.